The Justice Department's Inspector General report has some harsh words for the former FBI Director James Comey, but it declines prosecution and who made the DNC's debate night 3-stage.
And as for Hurricane Dorian approaches Florida, the politics of hurricanes are front and center. Here with the latest of these stories is the Hills Editor-in-Chief, Bob Cusack. Welcome, Bob.
Good morning.
Great to see you, Bob. So we got, it was a bombshell here in D.C. yesterday with the Inspector General report on James Comey. I know the Hill has a great story up, the 5 takeaways. What are the broad swaths for the audience?
Well, number one is that Comey's unapologetic about this. I mean, the bottom line here is that James Comey's reputation over the last 3 years has taken major hits, and this is the latest one. This is something that's not over, of course. There's another investigation on investigating the investigators, so that's the next shoe to drop. But this was a very damning report for James Comey. And remember, James Comey doesn't have a lot of friends on the left or the right. He's been criticized for the Hillary Clinton investigation, how he dealt with Trump, but he won't be prosecuted. And I imagine the president's probably not too happy about that.
Not happy at all, right? I mean, he does have so much of a holier-than-thou attitude, and he was saying that he wanted people to apologize for lying about him.
Yeah.
I mean, the Inspector General's report literally said that he set a dangerous example of leaking classified information, or whatever, non-public information, retroactively classified, to his lawyer to expressly influence the political process.
And it was just, there were so many interesting nuggets in this report. He had 2 safes at home, one for the FBI and one personal, and he said that because I had in my personal the memos, well, then they were personal. The only reason he was meeting with Trump, as he did acknowledge in the investigation, was not because he has a personal relationship with Trump, it's because he was the FBI chief.
Yeah. So William Barr has decided not to prosecute. What do you make of that?
You know, I think that he just thinks that he doesn't have the strongest case here, that he technically didn't leak he didn't leak the actual memo. He gave it to a friend to tell the New York Times about it. So I think they probably would have lost the case. But I still think that maybe, who knows, but maybe Attorney General Barr had a little conversation with the president explaining that because he didn't want Trump to go on Twitter complaining about the non-prosecution.
I also found it funny. What I was concerned about is how this is going to play out in the court of public opinion, and that might be a more favorable venue for Trump. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, this is a big win for Trump and his allies, and he can go on offense as he did yesterday on Twitter, and his allies continue to hammer Comey. And it's interesting, like, where does Comey go from here? 3 years ago, he was known as a straight shooter, had a fantastic reputation, was known for following the rules. He broke the rules.
Yeah. Don't worry, though. He made a lot of money off that book, Bob.
He did.
So we've got a hurricane that's bearing down on us, Hurricane Dorian. The President of the United States cancels his trip to Poland. So there's these politics of the hurricane, obviously. Puerto Rico could be affected. Florida could be affected. What do we know so far about the disaster response? What the expected fallout is? I mean, we already know there will be.
Well, there's both. You have the concern of Florida, and you also have the political ramifications. Senator Rick Scott won his election. He dealt with some storms very well. So it's a big deal. We've seen prior presidents deal with storms effectively and not effectively. Hurricane Katrina comes to mind. So now Florida is a state that Trump must win if he's going to win re-election. So I think this was a smart move for a number of concerns. He's not going to travel, and he's got to make sure that this could be a devastating storm. They're expecting possibly this goes up to a 4. That could mean a lot of destruction. So I think it was a wise move by the White House.
Yeah, I mean, we're also concerned because, as I understand it, one of the issues is about the disaster relief funding. And so the president has sparred in the past with Puerto Rico about this. Obviously, he's probably not going to do so with Florida. But if this does hit Puerto Rico, is that a possibility at this point? I mean, because that will really set off another flashpoint.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to be as bad as certainly Hurricane Maria. But at the same time, people are justifiably noticing the difference between how Trump has dealt with Puerto Rico and Florida. He's been very critical of Puerto Rico, and he has said that Puerto Rico is very popular in Puerto Rico. He's not very popular in Puerto Rico. So this is something that is going to dominate the Labor Day weekend, and they better be ready, or else this is going to hurt them in Florida.
I want to ask about Puerto Rico, because essentially he's written off the island. He's forgotten at one point that they are actual Americans who can go to mainland and vote. What is his play here? Why is he constantly writing them off?
Well, I think it hurts him politically, and certainly going back to Senator Rick Scott, who beat Senator Bill Nelson, he didn't write Puerto Rico off, just the opposite. So, and it helped him win a very narrow election. So I do think that politically, going after Puerto Rico, I don't think helps the president.
And it's interesting, too, because this is a big test for Governor DeSantis. I mean, he won by a narrow margin. And it's like you said, Rick Scott had a great reputation on Florida hurricanes. I mean, he's really got to show up here. But we should also talk about the DNC and the debates. We have the official lineup. We know that the podium order was determined on polling averages, so center stage, obviously. We have Joe Biden, flanked by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And the outer edges of the stage, we have Amy Klobuchar and Julian Castro. Any predictions for the debate? I mean, we will only have a single night. How does this change the dynamics?
I think it changes significantly.
Yeah.
First of all, Elizabeth Warren's going to be on the same stage as Joe Biden for the first time.
Right.
So that's a big deal. Also, remember, you've had this alliance of Sanders and Warren. They didn't go at each other last time, even though some predicted it. We didn't, but some did. And they're going to be surrounding, as you mentioned, Joe Biden. So Joe Biden is probably going to take incoming from both sides. The other interesting thing here, the moderates are not here. Bullock is not in this debate. Delaney is not in this debate. So this moves the debate more to the left. You have Klobuchar, who's a little bit more moderate, but this is going to be something I think that the base wants, because there are going to be more left of center candidates than in prior debates.
And I've been saying this from the beginning, Bob. I mean, I think that all anybody ever wanted to see from the very beginning was like Bernie, Biden, Warren, Kamala, and Buttigieg. Like those five slog it out, because it truly is a theory of change thing. I mean, Biden, I talked about this earlier. I mean, making up a fake war story is not something that's going to go over well. These are exactly the type of things that Kamala Harris or whomever could go after him on. And at the same time, with the progressives just beating the drum on how his theory of politics has not worked, I think he's in for a real night.
I think he is, and I think this is going to be interesting. This is going to be post-Labor Day. I think more people are getting into it. I think it's going to be dynamic. We've had a couple debate nights that have been good, a couple ones that have been kind of duds. I think this is going to be scintillating. I also think O'Rourke and Buttigieg need big nights, or they're in real trouble.
That's right. So on the edges of that stage, we have Castro, O'Rourke, and Klobuchar. I mean, they are truly in the fight for their political lives here, right?
Yeah, just like Gillibrand was. She's now out. She couldn't make the debate stage, and that's a big thing. So I do think that now remember, it's not as crowded, so it's only one night. Everyone's watching, so maybe Klobuchar has a big zinger. And how many people go after Biden? All of them? Some of them?
But what is the strategy, do you think, should be for some of these people who've been fighting for their political life or barely hanging on?
Well, I think a lot of people the candidates have to realize most people, I mean, not insiders like us, but most normal people haven't been paying that much attention. I've asked my friends, are you watching the debates? Nah, what channel is it on? Don't know. I think that changes post-Labor Day, maybe for this debate, but certainly in October and November.
I think you're
so now more people are going to be, I think the ratings are going to be fantastic for this one.
I think you're absolutely right. Thank you so much for joining us, Bob. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, what will it take to get Iran and the U.S. to the negotiating table?
An Iran expert shares his thoughts on the possibility when Rising continues.